This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Years ago, there was no easy way to cure a person from flu. If a person got sick, a person got a flu. It wasn't so simple until they eventually discovered penicillin, which was a tremendous discovery, amazing discovery. They managed to give people this medication and managed to cure them from having the flu, from being sick. So somebody was sick at one point. In those days, what they had to do, there was no pills, there was no liquid that you just took home to your house and took it whenever the doctor prescribed. But rather you had to go to the doctor's office. He had this huge glass bottle of penicillin, and he would inject you into this penicillin, and when you need the next dosage, you'd come back into the doctor's office and you'd continue with the dosage. And at one particular point, there was a big doctor in Tel Aviv who got a visit from one of the big Magidim, one of these Rabbonim that used to go around giving chizuk, giving shiurim to various communities around the world. And he came into the doctor's office and he said, "I'd like to please have an empty bottle of penicillin." It had the big words penicillin on the outside. "Give me an empty bottle. What are you going to do with it anyway? I'd like to have this bottle." So the doctor thinks, "No, okay, what could be so bad? I don't need it anyway." And he gave him the bottle of penicillin. Afterwards, he's thinking to himself, what on earth does this big rabbi who goes around the world speaking, what does he need this for? What does he need this empty bottle of penicillin? And he asked someone to find out what exactly he's going to do, and they found out that basically he was giving a speech to thousands of people that evening in Yerushalayim. He's probably going to use it in the speech. So the doctor thinks he's going to use this empty bottle of penicillin in the speech. Funny. Now I'm going to go to the speech. And he traveled all the way to Yerushalayim, and he sits by the speech and he sees there's thousands of people listening to this Maggid, and as he's talking, these words of wisdom are just flowing from his mouth, and the doctor is thinking, no, when is it going to be the time that he's going to go and actually use the bottle that I gave him? And at one point, the Maggid stops and says, Rabbi Isai, I want to tell you something. They just discovered a number of years ago a brand new medication called penicillin. Baruch Hashem, now we can cure people that have the flu, people that are sick. We can give them an injection, and he takes out from under the stender an empty bottle of penicillin, and says, Rabbi Isai, this was such a great discovery, an amazing thing. And then he said, Rabbi Isai, there's something even more amazing. There's an actual healing way that was created many, many years before that, which we can use, which is even more powerful than penicillin. The doctor is sitting there thinking, can that be? I mean, I go to medical school, I go to all the reviews, I read what's going on in the medical field, I don't know anything that they brought out that's better than penicillin. So what is this Maggid talking about? And the Maggid continues to say that what I'm talking about is Tefillah. Tefillah, the union of davening, is something which is way more powerful than any medication that exists in the world. It's an unbelievable thing, but yet we do it all the time. We do it 3 times a day. Do we really appreciate what we're doing? Do we really have an appreciation of the koyach, of the power that has been instilled within us of the koyach of Tefillah? And I'd like to spend, if you don't mind, the next few weeks, at least 3 weeks, maybe even 4 or 5 weeks, in a series on the koyach of Tefillah, of the power of what it means to daven, to give you an understanding and some kind of idea what it means to daven, and what the koyach you have instilled within you to daven. I think it was Reb Shalom Shadron Zatzal was standing by the Kaisel Maravi one particular afternoon, and as he's standing there, he hears these engines of these big, motorbikes. 2 huge motorbikes come right in. They're allowed in through the entrance of the security, and they're allowed all the way in. And he hears these, these big, huge Harley Davidson, massive machines making this huge noise. And these 2 guys are driving. Each one's driving their huge Harley Davidson with this leather jacket and 14 earrings all the way around the ear, and they're going all the way down to the coastal, and the security are letting them all the way down to the wall. And he's watching the scene. What's going on over here? What's happening? And he sees that they go off their motorbike, and one of them takes out a piece of paper from his jacket and a pen, and he starts scribbling something. He shows it to his friend, and his friend looks at it and says, yeah, he nods. That's okay. Folds it up, and he puts it into the wall. and off they get back onto their motorbike, and they zoom off. And everybody's wondering, come on, what just happened? These people didn't look very religious, if they were even Jewish. Nobody knew what was going on. Everybody was looking until they eventually found out that what happened was these two people were playing that evening in one of the big football matches here in Eretz Yisrael, and they wanted to go and daven in order to have a successful game. They were davening for success. So if I remember correctly, Mishon Shagron once said over the Maisa when he said, we can look at it and say, hey, Kaisel Mayovi, what are they doing there? Come on, cover that Kaisel. No. Look at it the other way. These people understood what Koyach HaTefillah is. They understood what it means that if you want to accomplish something, the only way that it's possible to accomplish it is with Tefillah. At the beginning of anti-Semitism was spreading around Europe, it was 1938. The year was 1938. The hatred that was becoming more and more apparent to the Jewish people created a sense of fear amongst everybody in the Jewish nation. All of Klal Yisrael was scared. What's going to be? What's going to happen? Eventually they made a meeting, all the big Rabbonim, all the big Rebbes, the biggest Rosh Yeshivas, everybody got together to decide what can be done to save Klal Yisrael. What can we do? And they went around the table, and you can imagine the scene. You've got the biggest Rebbes, you've got the biggest Rabbonim of cities, you've got the biggest Rosh Yeshivas of thousands of Talmidim, and they're sitting together in a room, deciding what can we do to save Klal Yisrael. And as you can understand, each one gets up and gives his idea. This one gets up and says we have to work on tznius. This one gets up and says we have to work on shmiras haloshen. This one gets up and says we have to talk about shmiras Shabbos. Each one has their idea, and all give rayas and proofs to what they're saying, to how this can save Klal Yisrael. The last speaker in this gathering was Rabbi Yosef Shlomo Kahanim and the Ponovitch Rov. The Ponovitch Rov was the last person to address the crowd. And he gets up, and everybody's wanting to see what is the Ponovitch Rov going to say. And in a loud, clear voice, he begins as follows. And he said, a fire once broke out in Rabbi Yoel's home. A fire broke out in Rabbi Yoel's home. People started gathering, people started bringing buckets to try and extinguish the fire. Everybody was doing their part to try and see what they could do to save the house. And at one point they realized, hey, where's Rabbi Yoel? The man of the house, the man who lives there. The Balabos, he's gone. He's not. Where is he? Nobody managed to take him down. Nobody managed to wake him up. It was 2 o'clock in the morning. He's probably still sleeping. So everybody started wondering, what should they do? This one said they can take stones on the window. This one's going to get a ladder. Maybe they'll get up there high enough. This one's going to try to go through the back. Maybe over there the fire hasn't spread. Each one had their idea. What are they going to do to try and save Rabbi Yoel? So somebody said, Rabbi Isai, it's a little bit too late for that. The fire has spread. There's only one thing that we can do. And that's daven. And that's go and scream. We can stand there and we can scream, Rabbi Yoel, 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 wake up. That screaming is the only thing that's going to wake him up and bring him out of the house safely. Said the Ponovitch Rov, yes, it's true, we have to work on tznius, we have to work on Shabbos, we have to work on shmiras haloshen. There's many things that we have to do. It's a little bit late right now. There's only one thing that has the real koyach, the real effect, and that is Tefillah. Tefillah has within it the most unbelievable effect, and we don't even realize or appreciate that which we have inside us. We all have the power. Every single one of us have instilled within us the koyach of Tefillah, and as we're going to see Be'ez Hashem over the next few weeks, as will become apparent, the koyach of Tefillah is unbelievable. There's a Moedik Ramban. Moshe Rabbeinu, as we know, was told by the Rebbeinu Shalom to save Klal Yisrael. And we know that there was an argument, whatever that means, between Moshe Rabbeinu and the Rebbeinu Shalom, and for many days Moshe Rabbeinu refused. Rebbeinu Shalom tells him to go. Moshe Rabbeinu says no. What was the reason? Why did Moshe Rabbeinu refuse? HaKadosh Baruch Hu told him to do something, and Moshe Rabbeinu says no. So Chazal tell us clearly, because of his speech problem. Moshe Rabbeinu had a speech problem. Chazal tell us it's because of the cold that happened in Paris' house. Whatever it was, Moshe had some kind of problem with speaking. And he felt, how can I represent Klal Yisrael, represent the Rebbeinu Shalom? I'm not right for such a thing. Send my brother Aaron. Asks the Ramban a very simple question on the Torah. Says the Ramban, so why didn't Moshe Rabbeinu just daven? Did he be taken away? If the whole problem is, you've got a speech problem, God's telling you, go and save my people. Say to God, okay, take away my speech problem, let me talk like a mensch, and then I'll go. And the Ramban asks the Kasha, what's going on? Answers the Ramban, such a powerful yesod. Says the Ramban, you know why? Because Moshe Rabbeinu didn't ask. If Moshe Rabbeinu would have asked, it would have gone away. Now, the Ramban didn't cheshbon why Moshe Rabbeinu didn't ask. That's true. But it's clear that if a person doesn't ask, he doesn't get. Rav Shimshon Pincus and Shalom Tefillah writes so many times that Tefillah can give us not only that which was anyway coming to us, but it can also give that which was not meant to come to us. That which we didn't deserve. And that's something unbelievable. There's a Rashi, the beginning of Parshas Bereshis. I'm not going to go through the whole Inyan, but Rashi explains, as the Torah tells us in Ma'aseh Bereshis, in the beginning of creation of the world, we understood that Adam HaRishon came at the last day. He saw everything in front of him. Adam HaRishon had the opportunity to see everything that which the Rebbeinu Shalom created. And yet, the Torah tells us clearly that Adam HaRishon needed vegetation and needed food. Now the question is, 1 second, Adam HaRishon, you came at the end of creation. You came at the end. You were at the end of the 6th day, right before Shabbos Kodesh. The fruits of the trees, the vegetables in the ground, everything was already created. What are you hungry for? Everything's there already. The answer, says Rashi, clearly again from the Torah, is that everything was created in koyach. Everything had the potential to be there. It was all there under the ground. But there was no one there to daven. And without tefillah, it won't come. Even though a person is raw, even if a person is befitting to get something, that if you don't daven, it doesn't come your way. And sometimes we think to ourselves, we should get something. We need this, we all have all our requests. Whether it's good children, whether it's a shalom bayis, whether it's a shidduch, whether it's whatever it is, we all have our requests. Chazal tell us clearly from Parshas Bereshis, if Adam HaRishon wouldn't have davened, there would be nothing that came out of the ground. Even though HaKadosh Baruch Hu created it for Adam HaRishon's benefit, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us the potential to daven for things that we were going to get anyway, but if we don't daven, we just won't get it. That's what Rashi tells us. We'll tell you one last episode and we'll end with the story. The Gemara, Rosh Hashanah Daf Chesed and Aleph, tells us that Rabbi Meir said that there were two people with the same illness. There were two people on the gallows about to be hung. One recovered and one didn't. One was saved and one wasn't. Asks the Gemara, what's pshat? What's the difference? Two people are in intensive care. Two people are about to be hung on the gallows. And the Gemara tells us one was saved and one wasn't. One was cured and one wasn't. What's the difference? What happened? That's the Gemara's kasha. Answers the Gemara a very simple answer. One davened and one didn't daven. That's it. One davened and one didn't daven. Simple answer. Ask the Gemara, what's pshat? So the Gemara says one davened a tefillah shleima and one did not daven a tefillah shleima. Says Rashi, what does it mean when the Gemara says one davened a tefillah shleima? Says Rashi, nischaven. He had kavona, whatever that means. So just take for a moment the picture, right? Just take in your head to understand it. You have a man lying in hospital. He's told by the doctors, I'm terribly, terribly sorry, but there's nothing more that we can do for you. Maybe it's better to go home and, leave this world together with your family. There's nothing more that we can do except pray. He has an opportunity to daven, he has an opportunity to pray. Do you think that tefillah won't be a good tefillah? I'm saying we're not talking about our mincha, that we just walk into mincha, Ashrei and Shmoneh to just finish it within 7.5 minutes, record speed. We can finish mincha, no problem, right? Without tachlan even as well, maybe even with tachlan. I'm talking about a guy who knows that it's all over. His life depends on it. You're telling me, as the Gemara is telling us, that he didn't daven a good tefillah? How's that possible? A man's about to be killed. They're about to remove the stool from beneath his legs, and his neck will be detached. He has a moment to daven, and you're telling me that it's not a good tefillah? The Gemara tells us, he didn't daven a tefillah shleima. He didn't nischaven, as Rashi explains. What's the pshat? Rabbi Lopian explains pshat in the Gemara, and he explains concentration, kavona, that's not what he means. Rashi doesn't mean nischaven of kavona in concentration, because of course they concentrated. When you're in such a situation, everybody concentrates. But rather, when the doctor came to him and said, I'm terribly sorry, but it's all over, there's nothing more that we can do for you, what did he think? It's all over. He's already planning the Levaya. He's already planning what they're going to say to him on the Hesped. It's all over. So yes, he's davening. But the davening wasn't with a hope. It wasn't with a reality that HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs the world and will change everything because of that one tefillah. That's the reason why, says Rabbi Lopian, that Tefillah Shalema wasn't real. Tefillah Shalema means that when we come to davening and we understand, and we'll explain in Mit Hashem in the coming weeks exactly how to do this and how to make this real. But what we have to understand, says Rabbi Lopian Zatzal from the Gemara over there, that first you have to realize that your tefillah has the courage to change anything. Your tefillah can absolutely have the courage to change everything. And let me just end with one last maisa. Reb Shabtai Yudelevich Zatzal, Magid once said over a tremendous maisa. There was a 8-year-old child in Peru, in a village, and he was in an orphanage. And unfortunately, no parents, and they put him into this orphanage. An 8-year-old boy in Peru, a guy. And he's thinking to himself, I don't have any kids, I don't have any parents, I have no one to look after, I have no siblings. And he watches the window every single day and he sees families walking, taking their children to school, families picking up their children from school, families taking on an outing outside. And he thinks to himself, when am I going to have a family? What's going to be with me? I'm in this orphanage. Yes, it's true, I have food. Yes, I have shelter. But I don't have a family. So he wrote a letter. And he wrote a letter and he addressed the letter, Dear God, Dear God, I'm an 8-year-old boy, this is my name, this is the orphanage, and I don't have a family. I just have one request. Please, please, I just want a family that love me. Signed, and he signed it his name, put in an envelope, and he signed it, Dear God. He got permission to go out to the mailbox, and he put it into the mailbox. The postman gets the mail, empties it out, starts looking through it to see where to send various things, and he sends an envelope there saying, Dear God. Now there's a very, 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 very important custom in Peru is never to open up somebody else's letter. No such thing. So he wouldn't touch it. He knew what to do with it, so he handed it to his manager. His manager, again, would keep the rule. He didn't know what to do with this. He put it to someone who oversaw him. Eventually, it passed through all the stages until it reached the Prime Minister himself. The Prime Minister of Peru got this letter on his desk saying, we don't know what to do with this. It's a letter signed, dear to God. We don't know what to do. We're not going to open this. So he decided, fine, I'll open it. Closes his study door, locks the door, takes out his gold, beautiful envelope opener, and slowly but surely opens up the envelope and takes out the letter. And he's moved to tears when he sees this letter from this 8-year-old boy who just wants a family. And he calls on his wife, what do you think of this letter? His wife wasn't zoichet to have children. They never had kids. They always wanted to adopt a child. They said, you know what, let's go check out this child. They brought in all their officers and they said, let's scan out all the orphanages all over Peru. We're going to find this child. And they found the child and bring him in a big limousine all the way to the Prime Minister's house. He's wondering what's going on. And he comes there, they talk to him, and he finds favor in their eyes and they're just ecstatic. Wow, we're going to adopt you. And he's so excited he has a family. Says Rav Shabtai Yudelevich, that's all it took. It took one little 8-year-old boy to have a serious request, and someone took it seriously. So the Shab says in Yudelevich, we have that opportunity every time we come into the Beis Knesset, we come into Shul, and we open up a Siddur. We have an opportunity to talk to the Ribbono Shel Olam, and the Ribbono Shel Olam is listening to us. In Mitzvah Hashem, next week, we'll continue with part 2 on this series of Tefillah. Have a good night.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.